Hey, yo, what is going on, you guys? Got a brand new episode of Buy or Bust for you guys today. Today, we're going to be talking about Warlock, the brand new Series 5 Activate card that is releasing on Tuesday that can elevate some of these maybe decks you're not seeing a lot at the moment because, you know, Mobius just doesn't exist. People are not going to be running Mobius. People are going to be running a lot of Mobius this week. But Warlock looks like a very fun card. Let's go ahead and jump right into some key synergies, some key counters. I'm going to give you guys 3 different decks for this card, as well as talk about the floor and the ceiling. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So in case you guys did not know, Warlock is a 3-cost, 3-powered activate card that has the ability to activate for each unspent energy. Give a card in your hand -1 cost. This is an ability that looks at the current turn of unspent energy. So keep that in mind when you're playing this. This is what it looks like in game. Think of kind of like a Kahori for your hand, but instead of giving power, it decreases the energy cost to be able to play that card. But it looks at the current turn, so you have to float energy the turn you activate, opposed to activating and see what happens on the next turn at the very beginning. So just keep that in mind when you are playing this card. But let's go ahead and talk about some key synergies for this card. One of the focal synergies we have here is going to be She-Hulk. Yes, She-Hulk can get discounted all the way to 0 herself, but when I think of She-Hulk here, I am thinking of some good old high evil synergies in order to be able to get some value and get other cards besides She-Hulk. Energies, you know, decrease as well. And then we're also thinking of Sunspot because you're floating energy. You want to have a card to be able to soak up that energy that is floated. Why a Sunspot is a great card to go with Warlock as well. But I'm thinking of She-Hulk in High Evo. I'm thinking of She-Hulk in maybe some Monkey Slam coming back. We do have a Warlock Slam deck. If you guys are fans of the Surtur Slam list that I posted many seasons ago during the Surtur season, we have a new one for Warlock as well. And then also with Pixie. So, like, with Pixie, having another card that can kind of discount your cards besides Pixie seems like you have some really cool likelihood there. Another card you could maybe think about would be like a Jennifer Kale, Hope Summers, cards that give you extra energy that if you do float it, gives you some extra Warlock value as well. But let's talk about some of these counters as well. One of the main counters is going to be Red Guardian. Red Guardian, if it's in a lane by itself, Red Guardian is a counter card, but that's not the main one. Kind of got you guys there. The main counter card is going to be Mobius because, you know, Warlock is an energy discounting card. Mobius completely negates any energy discounting that Warlock gets. I don't know why I started there, but it negates any energy discounting that Warlock does apply. Mobius just cancels that out, so you would not get any Warlock value there. And also Cosmic Ghost Rider, since Red Guardian, of course, is, you know, not as great. I mean, because Warlock is a 3-3. Maybe if Warlock was like 3-2, 3-1, Red Guardian would maybe get more value there. It definitely is a counter card, but if you set Warlock in a lane by itself. But Cosmic Ghost Rider, you're normally playing Warlock in the front row, so Cosmic Ghost Rider does mitigate what Warlock does. Of course, if you have priority, Warlock does go off before Cosmic Ghost Rider goes off. So you wouldn't be able, you know, you wouldn't get countered in that sense, but if you don't have priority, Cosmic Ghost Rider can negate what you're trying to do with Warlock, so just keep that in mind. Sandman would be another counter card as well, increasing the cost of your cards on the next turn, to kind of mitigate maybe what could have just happened with Warlock, but those are kind of the focal counters, Mobius being the biggest one. Now let's move on to the good for Warlock. The discount is normally unknown to your opponent unless you have a card that appears on screen for your opponent to know what has been discounted. Your opponents don't know what in your hand has been discounted and how much they have been discounted. Some of that unknown surprise factor, like with Mr. Fantastic First Steps and with Surge that we've seen in previous seasons as well. We also have it as a 3-cost, so it's fairly easy to play out. Of course, you need to play this on turn 3 or turn 4 at the moment in order to be able to get the activate to go off for later in game. You, of course, don't have to wait to activate it on turn 5, but that's more often than not the best turn to activate this card. Of course, you know, Jocasta is not out, so it can't automatically give you that activate bonus. So this does need to be on the board at the end of turn 3 or at the end of turn 4 in order to be able to get value for later plays. Of course, you know, it has a decent beast base power, too, to be able to avoid Red Guardian, even though Red Guardian is a counter to this card. It being at 3 power, it makes it so it's not the smallest card normally in a lane. Of course, if you play it by itself and your opponent does have a Red Guardian, they could tempo the Red Guardian and, of course, hit your Warlock. But most of the time, that's not going to happen. And, you know, the main counter for this card is going to be Mobius. So if you don't see Mobius, more often than not, you're in a really good spot. Of course, Cosmic Ghost Rider does also have an impact on this card too, so that really depends on what you have with priority going into turn 5 or sometimes into turn 4 if you're facing something like Airshim or another card or another deck that has energy going into those earlier turns. You may be seeing more Wiccan and stuff as we continue to progress in the meta too, so just kind of keep that in mind. And Sandman also is a counter, but Mobius is legit the main counter to this card. The bad for this card, the cost RNG is, something to kind of keep in mind. The discount doesn't just apply to one card. It applies to potentially all the cards in your hand, depending on the energy you have floated, and it also depends on how many cards you have in your hand. So, sometimes it's going to hit the cards you want it to hit, and give you the value of Warlock. Sometimes it's not going to hit those cards at all. Maybe you're wanting it to hit your not a Sunspot. Maybe you're wanting it to hit, your Hitmonkey, or you're wanting it to hit maybe a Hydra Bob or something because you don't have Black Swan on the board. It could hit something else instead, hit the same card multiple times. Not sure at the moment if it does hit cards that have already been discounted to 0. It's something that I kind of want to test, activating your Black Swan before activating a Warlock. So the cards that are activated by Black Swan, they immediately go to 0 cost to be able to go into the next turn with them costing 0. So I'm interested to see with Warlock 2 if Warlock can hit the cards that have already been discounted to 0, or if it does not look at that number at all and just goes crazy. It's something just to kind of think about. Does it hit the cards that already are at 0, or does it hit any card no matter what? So I want to see kind of how that plays out with some testing. Of course, you have to float energy to be able to use the activate. If you don't float any energy, Warlock doesn't do anything, and of course, it has to be activated in order for the ability to go off, so just keeping that in mind as well. And Mobius exists. So that's just the downside there is Mobius exists. You're going to be seeing a lot of Mobius this week because people are going to be just running counters to the card. The Fun Police is going to be out. We're already seeing a good bit of Mobius. Not a lot, but a good bit at the moment because I'm still seeing a lot of Mr. Negative. I'm personally running Mobius because of how much Mr. Negative and stuff I'm seeing. Also with Move Bounce, being able to mitigate that. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now let's talk about the floor and the ceiling for this card. The floor for this card is it's a late draw, or you don't float any energy at all, so you can't use the ability. That is worst case scenario. I think the middle of the line scenario is you can play this on curve, or you can play this on turn 4. On turn 5, you activate this, and you can apply discounts to your hand. That is not floating a lot of energy. Floating even just maybe a couple energy to be able to discount 1 or 2 cards, or potentially just 1 card in your hand with the Warlock RNG. Allows you to kind of be able to play out potentially just more cards later in the game, which is really nice. Something we didn't talk about earlier, Luna Snow also could be a pretty good card for Warlock as well, having that as another enabler to be able to float energy, to be able to get maximum Warlock value, floating the energy onto turn 5, so then you have 6 energy to have Warlock mess around with going into turn 6 could be nice. Which is why the ceiling of this card is you float turn 5, potentially turn 6 if you have magic on the board, in order to get a maximum amount of discounts to your hand. And I think best case scenario, you have less cards in your hand for Warlock to hit, or Warlock does work the way we hope it does with a Black Swan. So those 1-cost cards already are 0. So the rest of the cards in your hand, Warlock gets to choose between, be able to hit with that energy discount, which if it does work out that way, super, super excited even more for Warlock Slam, which Warlock Slam is pretty much the Surtur Slam list, but instead of Surtur, we are running Gwenpool, and instead of Shadow King, we are running Warlock. That is the main difference we have in this list. Of course, the lines are interesting. Sometimes you play Warlock instead of Hope Summers. Sometimes you play Hope Summers instead of Warlock. It depends on what your hand is looking like. You don't always have to float your entire turn 5, depending on that interaction with Black Swan. Because if that interaction with Black Swan works the way we hope it does, there is a world where you float just 1 energy on turn 5. You play a Gwenpool or you play a Moon Girl, and then you activate your Warlock, and then Warlock then targets the cards that do not cost 0. So really interested to see how that's going to play out. You also have Wasp in this to be able to play onto your Hope Summers in order to get that extra energy onto turn 4 to be able to do some extra stuff. So maybe you're playing Hope Summers and you play the Wasp down on Hope Summers on turn 4. So then on turn 5, you could play a Warlock and then you can play a Black Swan. You could potentially play Warlock or Black Swan onto that Hope Summers as well. So then going into turn 5, you have 6 energy. You have 2 of your enablers for that energy discounting. So then on turn 5, you potentially could do a Gwenpool or a Moon Girl. You can activate also your Black Swan and your Warlock. You have 2 energy left over if you play just a Gwenpool or if you play just a Moon Girl in that situation. In order to, on turn 6, have floated 2 energy for She-Hulk. Also, you have 2 energy for Warlock to be able to add to your hand to be able to discount your cards, is kind of the line you're looking like there. This is definitely where I'm going to be starting and playing Warlock on Tuesday when Warlock releases. So it'll be very interesting to see how that works out. And then the next list we do is high for Warlock. It is a high Evo Warlock build. We have magic for that potential just floating turn 6 to be able to get value. I'm thinking other people are going to play Warlock as well. So we have Thaddeus Ross to be able to draw some of these cards. Of course, I think Red Hulk is also going to be a big card this week for Warlock as well. So there's a world where maybe you would flex in a Red Hulk into this to just maybe have more just combo pieces there. We have Sunspot, Misty Knight, Bruce Banner, and Cyclops as cards to be able to float for extra energy. We also have Jennifer Kale, a card we can play on turn or earlier in the game, not just turn, but activate on turn 4. In order for having 6 energy on turn 5, so that is more stuff for Warlock to be able to mitigate around, and energy that we can use to discount other cards in your hand. I mean, wouldn't it be really cool if She-Hulk, Hulk, and Infinite could all be played on the same exact turn, potentially with some Warlock things? That's the crazy, and I mean crazy high roll, where Warlock doesn't hit She-Hulk at all of it goes to Infinite, or all of it goes to Hulk, and then you're able to play out just an excess of just craziness on turn 6. That is insane, but that's a combo thing that can't happen, with this card. Potentially. It's going to be really, really rare, but it's definitely a situation that is possible. So just kind of keep that in mind. But pretty much just like high Evo, you have Magic for extra energy for like later turns. You have Jennifer Kale for energy, other just big cards on the board. And now you can't just destroy every single card with Shang-Chi. So you can play something like this. And then my next deck we have is Pixie Locks. So this is not fully optimized, but my general idea here with Pixie Locks is still going into, having Warlock. You're not necessarily having to float a whole lot of energy to be able to get maximum value with Warlock, because you have Pixie to be able to also mitigate some stuff. Warlock can help also just decrease this stuff's cost even more, is kind of the general idea. We're playing it in more of a Wiccan style list. You draw Quicksilver on 1. Your turn 2, you have Pixie, Kate Bishop, and Merlin. You also maybe potentially have 2 of those 1 costs you could play. So you have maybe a couple different options here. Maybe getting some extra Wiccan value, maybe just getting some early Pixie value. Wiccan isn't your end-all, be-all here, but also having Quicksilver being the card you draw on turn 1, making it so you potentially have more of your 1 cost in your deck to be able to get more Pixie value is kind of the general idea. Also with Merlin, Once in Future is a spell that can give you more energy on the following turn, which you can use that extra energy if you can't play everything out to get some better value with Warlock as well. You have Cosmic Ghost Rider for tech. You have a bunch of different on-reveal cards here to be able to get some gore value. That's kind of just the general concept I had with this good old Pixie Locks, which brings me to our vibe check on Warlock over here. I think Warlock is going to be pretty strong. I think the unknown factor definitely has a big impact on it too, because your opponents don't know how many cards have been discounted, or if 1 card just got discounted, how much energy you floated. They can kind of see that potentially with Sunspot, or they really have to math out what you floated if they can't see that number like visually on the board, which I think is really nice. Flexibility wise, I think there's going to be kind of more narrow decks probably for Warlock itself. It's not going to be a card you can maybe plug into everything, but the decks you do play it in definitely will give it some really great value. And then I don't necessarily know if this card will be adjusted. If it is too good, there's a world where they maybe make him a 3/2, or maybe make it so he's an easier Red Guardian target, but I don't really see that happening. But I do think this card is a buy. I would get Warlock, especially if you enjoy that style of play. If you don't enjoy the style of play, don't spend your resources on this card. Also, keep in mind, if you haven't gotten any of the other cards this season, your Seasonal Series 5-pack is going to be inflated, meaning you have a bunch of different cards in there where it might be better to spend that extra 1K to guarantee that you get Warlock instead of rolling the dice on like a 50-50 or even maybe like a 33-33-33. So just keep that in mind with this card. And, if you enjoy the style of play, I love the Hitmonkey Slam style of decks. I pretty much, I love some high evo. I haven't played it in a minute, but I used to play a lot of Pixie high evo. I do enjoy Pixie in general too. Like, those are just couple rough ideas. There's definitely gonna be more decks for this card, but it's still gonna be a little bit more niche in that sense because you do have to float energy for it. And I really love this card. I personally love this character, so I'm definitely gonna get it because I also love the character itself. But that's why I say every single time at the end of these videos, we are just theory crafting everything with this card, these decks, these ideas. Like, I don't know conceptually, does this work with Black Swan? Would this actually target the cards that have already been discounted by Black Swan? Cards that already have 0 cost. Will it hit the cards that already have 0 cost? We don't know. We haven't had access to be able to test these cards. So that is just something to note and something just to keep in mind with this. And at the end of the day, you guys need to spend your resources on what you guys really want to play. Don't just spend your resources to have every single card. I've stopped doing that myself personally. You can if you just want to stay collection complete. I totally get it. I totally get it. But I'm just saying you don't have to. You are not required to be collection complete. I know it does help you be able to get other cards in the future. So then, like I said, you're not inflated in the packs as much. But really, guys, if you could just focus on what you really want to play, what's going to bring you joy, because at the end of the day, we are still playing a video game. This is a video game. You should, buy what you want to buy and spend what you want to spend, of course, but do it in such a way that brings you joy and that can bring you fulfillment in the game. But I'm going to say, yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys did stick around to the very end, let me know down below, why are they doing these Cyberpunk skins for Warlock? I get it for the Cyberpunk season, but I want classic Warlock. I want classic Warlock variants, and we don't have any of those coming out, so we have to wait for all those. I might end up getting the super rare in October. I don't think I'm going to get the bundle for this, but we'll see what happens. But I want to say thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy the video, definitely feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. It's been real. God bless, and Tucker out.